This is the second sermon in the series on the Beatitudes in Matthew 5. And if we look at the text that we've read, I found two translations that are absolutely wonderful. The one is from the Amplified version that says, "Blessed or happy to be envied and spiritually prosperous, with life, joy, and satisfaction in God's favor and salvation, regardless of outward conditions, are the poor in spirit, the humble who rate themselves insignificant. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And then the Message translates it as follows: "You are the blessed when you are at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule." Isn't it beautiful? With less of you, there's more of God and of his rule. I would like to speak to you with the topic of detached to be attached. Detached to be attached. Happiness and poverty. Now, in our estimation, happiness goes with wealth and with power, not with poverty. Those are two words that don't really fit into one sentence, do they? And yet, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus uses those two words in one breath. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. In our previous sermon on this passage, we've seen how Matthew describes the entrance, Jesus' entrance to this magnificent sermon, colorful. Jesus saw the multitudes. He went up the mountain. He sat down. He opened his mouth and said, "Blessed, blessed." The first words coming from his mouth, "Blessed are those." And then he says, "Poor in spirit." Oh, the blessedness of those who are poor in spirit, who mourn, etc. We usually read these Beatitudes as prescriptions, but they're not prescriptions. They're actually proclamations. The poor in spirit are blessed. Proclamations. When Jesus starts his sermon, he says, "Oh, the happiness. Oh, the blessedness of those," and then the words, "poor." And I think a few people would have said, "Oh, that's wonderful. If we're poor, we can be happy." That's not what he said. Are the poor in spirit. Now, the secret of understanding this is to try and put yourself in the shoes of those who heard it for the first time. So I hope you will bear with me if I give you a bit of a Greek and a Hebrew lesson. Isn't that wonderful spice for a Sunday afternoon? But let's go. There are two words in Greek for poor. And those are the word penes. Penes describes a man who has to work for a living. It describes a person who serves his own needs with his own hands. The working man is not rich, he's not really destitute, he's just working, just enough. And this is the word penes. And then there's the word ptochos. Ptochos is the word Matthew uses when he records Jesus' words. Ptochos is the word describing the absolute and abject poverty, the man or the woman who has nothing at all. So this beatitude becomes a bit more surprising because it says, oh, the blessedness, the happiness of the man or the woman who is completely and utterly destitute. Well, that sounds a bit strange, isn't it? Maybe the Hebrew can give us a bit more understanding. You must understand that the people listening to Jesus, they were mostly Jews. And Jesus spoke in Aramaic, that is very much like Hebrew. So they would understand it very precisely what Jesus meant. In their understanding, there are 4 stages of being poor. There's a 4-stage development of being poor. They begin by saying, well, a poor person is simply poor. He has no luxuries. And then they say, well, some people are very poor, but because they are poor, therefore they have no influence or power or prestige. This is 1 step lower. And then they went on to say, because having no influence, therefore they are oppressed. Well, that's a step lower. And then finally they understood it as, because he has no earthly resources whatsoever, he has to put his whole trust in God. Well, that's the one. And that is how they understood Jesus. Blessed are those who are so poor in spirit that they put their whole trust in God. Examples of this we find in the Old Testament in our reading this afternoon, Psalm 34 verse 6. This poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. So what do we make of this? Let me conclude. If a person has realized his own helplessness and put his trust in God, there will enter in his life 2 things which are the opposite sides of the same thing. He will become detached of the things that he holds on to give him happiness. And he will become attached to God, which is his source. Let me explain. I have a watch. It's quite a nice watch, isn't it? I think there's some gold in it, I'm not sure. But I got it as a gift. It's quite nice. Now this watch, I can wear this watch my whole life. But I can wear this as an ornament. I can look at it and say, oh, that's beautiful. It's great, isn't it? But that's not what this watch is for. You agree? What does this watch need for it to be functional? Who can tell me? It needs a battery. It needs a battery. You see, if the battery is flat or there's no battery in it, well, it's a beautiful watch. It's an ornament. But the moment I put a battery in, this watch is functional. Without its battery, you can't see the battery. They don't advertise the battery. They don't put the battery somewhere that it's visible and people say, oh, what a beautiful battery. No, the same with you, the same with me. And this is what this text means. Without me, you can do nothing. And blessed is the man, the woman, the young boy, the young daughter who has realized just that. It's not a matter of sitting somewhere, oh shame, I'm so poor. No. It is this man, this woman who has realized without the battery, I'm just a show. May God help us. That beautiful, beautiful hymn that we so often sing, I need thee every hour. I need thee. That becomes part of who we are. And then we will find the meaning of Matthew 5, verse 3, and the depth of it. You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there's more of God. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Amen.